Hi everyone, I'm Terry Wood, author of PokerRailbird.com. Welcome to the fifth and final video in our series, GTO and Poker Math. In this video, we're going to explore two essential concepts that can significantly enhance your decision making at the poker table: fold equity and implied odds. Understanding these concepts is crucial whether you're bluffing, semi-bluffing, or navigating a strong drawing hand. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of how fold equity can shape your betting decisions and how implied odds play a vital role in your post-flop strategies. We'll cover the math, delve into real-world examples, and discuss how to integrate these concepts into your poker strategy for maximum impact. Fold equity refers to the probability that your opponent will fold in response to your bet or raise. It's a crucial concept in poker, particularly when you're trying to make your opponent fold a better hand, or when you're semi-bluffing with a draw. Fold equity becomes especially important in situations where you're considering bluffing or semi-bluffing. For example, when you're in position and the board favors your range, the likelihood that your opponent will fold increases. This is your fold equity at work. Several factors impact your fold equity, including your opponent's tendencies, the size of your bet relative to the pot, and the texture of the board. Tight players are more likely to fold, giving you more fold equity, while loose players are harder to push off their hands. In multi-way pots, your fold equity generally decreases because you have to convince multiple players to fold. Bluffing in these situations requires more caution, as the likelihood of someone having a strong hand increases. Against calling stations, players who rarely fold, you'll find that your fold equity diminishes significantly. In these cases, it's often better to focus on value betting strong hands rather than relying on fold equity. As an example, you are heads up. Imagine you're holding a flush draw on a board that shows a potential straight. You bet, knowing that your opponent might fold a medium strength hand due to the scare card. Your fold equity in this situation could be the deciding factor in your success. However, if this was a multi-way pot or if you were facing a calling station, the likelihood of success would be much lower. To calculate fold equity, you need to estimate the percentage of the time your opponent will fold to your bet or raise. The basic formula for fold equity is the probability of opponent folding times the size of the pot you will win if your opponent folds. For example, if you believe your opponent will fold 40% of the time and the pot is $100, your fold equity is $40. This $40 represents the portion of the pot you expect to win through your opponent folding. Let's walk through a practical example. You're in a hand where the pot is $150 and you estimate that your opponent will fold about 50% of the time to a $75 bet. Your fold equity would be 50%, the amount of time you think your opponent will fold, times $150, the pot, which equals $75. This means that even before considering your hand's strength, you're effectively winning $75 just by making the bet. Understanding this helps you make more informed betting decisions, especially when bluffing. Accurate estimation of your opponent's likelihood to fold is crucial. Factors such as player tendencies, bet sizing, and table dynamics all play a role. Overestimating your fold equity can lead to unnecessary bluffs, while underestimating it might cause you to miss profitable opportunities. Fold equity is a crucial component of bluffing and semi-bluffing. When you make a bluff, you're not just relying on the strength of your hand, but on your ability to make your opponent fold. Semi-bluffing, where you have a drawing hand with potential, leverages fold equity by adding another way to win the pot, either by making your hand or forcing your opponent to fold. Being in position enhances your fold equity because you get to see how your opponent acts before you make your move. By betting or raising in position, especially on scary boards, you can increase your fold equity and take down pots without needing the best hand. Different player types require different approaches to fold equity. Against tight players, you can rely more on fold equity, as they are more likely to fold to aggression. However, against loose players or calling stations, it's better to focus on value betting, as your fold equity will be significantly lower. In multi-way pots, using fold equity becomes trickier. With more players involved, the chances of someone holding a strong hand increase, which naturally diminishes your fold equity. As a general principle, bluffing in multi-way pots is often ill-advised. The presence of multiple opponents means that someone is more likely to call, so your bluffs should be well timed and backed by strong reads or specific situations. It's important to balance your fold equity strategies. If you bluff too often, observant opponents will catch on and start calling more frequently, reducing your fold equity. On the flip side, if you never bluff, you miss out on profitable opportunities to take down pots without a showdown. Striking the right balance between bluffing and value betting is key to maintaining your fold equity. Now that we've covered fold equity, let's shift our focus to another essential aspect of poker strategy, implied odds. While fold equity helps you understand when you can make your opponent fold, implied odds allow you to calculate the potential future value of your hand if you decide to continue playing. Together, these two concepts provide a comprehensive framework for making informed decisions at the poker table. Implied odds refer to the potential future winnings you can expect if you hit your drawing hand. Unlike pot odds, which only consider the current pot size, implied odds take into account the additional money you might win from your opponent on future streets if your hand improves. Implied odds are particularly relevant when you have a drawing hand, such as a straight or flush draw, and are deciding whether to call a bet. If the immediate pot odds don't justify a call, implied odds can make the decision profitable by factoring in the money you expect to win if you hit your hand. Several factors affect implied odds, including your opponent's tendencies, stack sizes, and the overall table dynamics. For example, if you're up against an aggressive player who's likely to pay off your big hand, your implied odds increase. On the other hand, if you're playing against a tight opponent with a small stack, your implied odds may be lower. Consider a situation where you have a flush draw on the flop and your opponent bets. The pot odds alone might not justify a call, but if you believe your opponent will pay off a large bet on the river if you complete your flush, your implied odds may make the call worthwhile. Calculating implied odds involves estimating the additional money you can win if your hand improves and comparing that to the cost of calling the current bet. The basic formula for implied odds is potential future winnings divided by the cost of the call. For example, if you believe that by hitting your draw you can win an additional $100 from your opponent and the current bet is $20, your implied odds would be $100 divided by $20 equals 5-to-1 implied odds. Let's apply this to a specific scenario. Imagine that the turn card brings you an open-ended straight draw. You now have 8 outs that could complete your straight, and with 46 unseen cards, your probability of hitting one of your outs on the river is approximately 17%, or odds of 4.75 to 1. Now, let's say your opponent bets $30 into a $70 pot. The total pot after your potential call will be $130, $70, the amount of the pot, plus $30 the opponent bet, plus $30 you must call to remain in the hand. So your pot odds are $130 divided by $30 for 4.33 to 1 pot odds. Here's the key. For a call to be profitable based on pot odds alone, the pot odds must be greater than or equal to the probability of making your hand. In this case, your pot odds, 4.33 to 1, are slightly worse than your odds of hitting the straight, 4.75 to 1. Mathematically, you should fold based on pot odds alone. But this is where implied odds come into play. If you believe that hitting your straight will allow you to win additional money on future bets, you can factor that into your decision. For example, if you estimate that you can win an additional $90 from your opponent on the river if you complete your straight, your implied odds would be $90 divided by $30, or 3-to-1 implied odds, now giving you total pot odds of 7.75 to 1 if you hit your hand. Now, combining your pot odds and implied odds gives you a more comprehensive picture. Even though the immediate pot odds suggest you should fold, the additional potential winnings from implied odds make calling more attractive. If your read on your opponent is strong and you believe they will pay off your straight, calling could be the correct decision. It's essential to understand the relationship between implied odds and pot odds. Pot odds provide a straightforward calculation of whether a call is profitable based on the current pot size. Implied odds, on the other hand, extend that calculation by considering potential future winnings. When you have a strong read that your opponent will pay off your hand, implied odds can tip the scales in favor of making the call, even if the immediate pot odds aren't ideal. Fold equity and implied odds may seem like separate concepts, but when used together, they provide a powerful framework for making optimal decisions in poker. The key is to recognize when each concept should influence your play and how they can complement one another. There are some inherent pitfalls many players make when using fold equity and implied odds. One of the most common mistakes players make is overestimating their fold equity. Just because you believe your opponent should fold doesn't mean they will. Be cautious when bluffing or semi-bluffing, especially against opponents who are known to be stubborn or are calling stations. Always consider your opponent's tendencies and the specific situation before relying too heavily on fold equity. Another frequent error is misjudging implied odds. Overestimating how much you can win on future streets can lead to costly mistakes. Be realistic about your opponent's willingness to pay off your big hands, especially when stack sizes are smaller or when playing against tight opponents. Implied odds should enhance your decision making, but they shouldn't be a crutch for making overly loose calls. Stack sizes also play a crucial role in both fold equity and implied odds. If your opponent is short stacked, your implied odds diminish because there's less money to win on future streets. Similarly, a short stack reduces your fold equity as your opponent might feel pot committed and more inclined to call your bet. Always consider stack sizes when making decisions based on fold equity and implied odds. Failing to balance your play between value betting, bluffing, and calling with draws can make you predictable. If your opponents recognize that you only bet strong hands or only call with drawing hands when the pot odds are favorable, they can adjust their strategy to exploit you. Strive to balance your play by mixing in occasional bluffs, semi-bluffs, and value bets to keep your opponents guessing. Finally, avoid the mistake of not adjusting to your opponents. Some players require more fold equity to be bluffed successfully, while others will pay you off more often, enhancing your implied odds. Pay attention to your opponent's tendencies and adjust your strategy accordingly. Poker is a dynamic game, and staying adaptable will keep you ahead of the competition. To wrap things up, understanding both fold equity and implied odds is crucial for making smart decisions at the poker table. These concepts work together to help you assess when to bluff, when to call, and when to fold. By applying what you've learned today, you'll be better equipped to navigate complex situations and maximize your profits. If you'd like to dive deeper into these topics, I invite you to read the full article on fold equity and implied odds over at pokerrailbird.com. I've posted the link in the description below, so be sure to check it out. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found this video helpful. Good luck to everyone, and we'll see you at the tables.